all too often news about emerging companies and successes did not reach our neighboring communities. And many people often feel there's not enough going on. To help us see the forest through the trees, I'd like to welcome Nasir Ali, Dan Miner, Elisa Miller-Out, Bob Manasier, and Richard Glaser to the stage. Each of them will be sharing insights on the companies and supporters who are at the forefront of the growth in their communities. Nasir is going to moderate the panel. Nasir is the co-founder and CEO of Upstate Venture Connect and the co-founder and the managing director of the StartFast Venture Accelerator. He's also a board member and advisor to numerous entities, including Upstate Capital Association of New York and the New York State Innovation Venture Capital Fund.
Thank you, Catherine, and good morning, everyone. It's amazing to see so many people gathered together, and thank you so much to all of you that traveled, and some of whom are staying overnight. This conversation really came about because as Martin and I have been traveling across upstate, there are some conversations that keep happening again and again and again, and we said, you know, the challenge that we see is we talk to these community catalysts and connectors in different communities, but they're all really excited what's happening in their community, but then they get even more excited when you start telling them what's happening next door. And wouldn't it be great if we could share that news and share that opportunity with the larger group of people assembled here today, so we can truly get a sense of the breadth and depth of this entrepreneurial movement that is shaping upstate in our economy. So it's my great pleasure today to welcome four friends to join me. Dan Miner is a journalist with the Buffalo Business First publication, and he is unique in terms of his focus on the startup community and its evolution and tracking how tech and business are coming together to transform that community. Elisa Miller-Out is a serial entrepreneur, 6 companies, and now has gone over to the dark side of venture capital. But the bright side of that is that it's a venture capital fund, Chloe Capital, that's focused on helping women entrepreneurs get the funding that they too often do not find through normal sources. So, and she has been one of the key catalysts pulling the Ithaca venture community together for many years, because when I first came to the region, it was sort of Cornell, and then there was this other college called IC, but there was no sort of community there. And thanks to Elisa, that's an amazing change that's happened. Richard Glaser is a wealth manager and advisor for Merrill Lynch by day, but then he puts on his cape and goes crusading for the cause of community building and bringing the arts and entrepreneurship together through his RocGrowth Candids and RocGrowth Coffee series. He just brings amazing people to the front, and so he's very plugged in to the Rochester area. So welcome, Richard. And last but not least, Bob Manasier. Bob had probably the longest short bio that I've ever had to edit. So I apologize in advance if it didn't. We were really space constrained on the program. But the amazing thing about Bob is just how much he has done in the capital region. He's been part of this effort called In Focus Brands, and he's probably worked with 150 or so companies over the years, helping them figure out what their growth strategies are, how they're going to move forward. And we thought he would sort of step it down a little bit when he sold In Focus a couple of years ago, but no, he's now an EIR for like 6 different organizations, including Innovate 518 and UAlbany, and I'm sure I'm going to miss the rest of them. But it's amazing to see just how much impact it's possible to have. So it's great to have you guys.
Thank you.
I could go on and on and on, but I think we're done with the intros. So what I'd love for you to do is maybe share with us a little bit about kind of how you perceive the community that you are kind of living in, even though all of you have a broader view of the region. But how do you see that having evolved the last 3 to 5 years? Because I think all of these communities have seen a dramatic change. So Dan, do you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in it's a really dynamic time for startup companies in Buffalo, and there's a lot of activity, and there are a lot more founders and deals happening. And I think there's sort of three forces that have kind of met to have created that sort of new theme in Buffalo. The first thing that you could really track was a grassroots scene of local technologists who, maybe a handful of them started meeting as many as 6 or 7 years ago. People who are sort of names now in Buffalo: John Spitz, Clark Dever, Dan Manischewski. And they had a certain sort of magnetism to them. And sort of organically, they just grew as a group of people who met and talked about software and tech. And I think the interesting thing, the thing that really made it a scene was, and they were met with the second force, which was the existing business community in Buffalo. There's always been a disconnect between sort of high-tech founders in Buffalo and people who are in established industries or institutions. Over the last couple of years, that's really changed, and now you have now it's something that people talk about at the club, on the golf course. Existing business professionals are getting involved in significant ways, and it's a unique theme trend in Buffalo, and it's everybody from people you'd know, from Jordan Levy to Scott Friedman, all the way to people who have recently sold companies like Thomas Hunt and Norm Murray and beyond. So it's created a huge amount of new wealth to be spread around companies, or a huge amount of new capital to be spread around among entrepreneurs. And the third thing that's happened in Buffalo is that there's been a huge wave of government funding, partly through 43 North, partly backing privately financed deals, and partly through funding the infrastructure in which high-tech companies in Buffalo currently operate. And so the three of these things all together have sort of created a platform, a certain amount of stability. There's no longer a fear in Buffalo that this is a trend that's going to go away. Now the question is how many companies can we take from that platform and shoot them into the stratosphere?
Great. So real quick, 3 companies people in this audience need to know about when they're thinking of Buffalo and the tech scene, the high growth scene.
Yeah, sure thing. For the first thing we've already talked about was ACV Auctions. That is the first company that we've really seen, or one of the first, really scale in the model of sort of famous venture-backed companies. I met the 3 co-founders in 2014, Dan Manischewski, Jack Greco, and Joseph Naiman. Now they have more than 400 employees and have pulled in more than $50 million in capital. And if my sourcing is correct, we're going to see a lot more of growth and fundraising going forward. The other one is Buffalo Automation, which is interesting. It's a very small company. They develop autonomous navigation software for the shipping industry. They have clients throughout the Great Lakes. The interesting thing is they were founded by an engineer who came to UB from India and dropped out to pursue the company. His name was Thiru Vikram. And the company has been embraced, like I said, by the existing business community. And one of their main investors is Jerry Jacobs Jr., who's the co-CEO of Delaware North and a member of kind of like one of the first business families in Buffalo, so to speak, right now. And the third one, because biotechnology is an important part of the strategy in Buffalo. There are institutions that are generating research, UB, Roswell Parr, Kaufman, Woodward, and one of the big efforts is to take that and turn it into legitimate commercial opportunities. So a couple of Roswell researchers, Dr. Spenstemacher and Shiselski, are working on a company right now, Mimivax, which is in phase 2 trials and is showing really good results in the treatment of glioblastoma, which is what John McCain had. It's a rare form of brain cancer. And it's got this it's this interesting threshold now. A small team that's been locally funded is facing the phase 3 trials, and the question is, how do they approach that? Do they find a partnership, or are they acquired something that sort of minimizes their impact and the scene, or do they try to raise a lot of money and take a lot more risk and try to do it themselves and recreate all that expertise that other partners may have? So
cool.
Yeah, 3 interesting companies.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Nasir, I think now about the changes that have happened since, we got together probably 8 or 9 years ago to start jump-starting the Ithaca community. And it's staggering the amount of growth we have seen in the time that I have lived there. So we went from being kind of a sleepy little, upstate New York community to now having these unbelievable resources for startups, including Rev Ithaca, the incubator right in downtown that was a collaboration between many of the universities in the region. We have 76 West headquartered there, the clean energy competition funded by Nasir that, as Catherine mentioned, just gave out a $1 million prize to startups in the southern tier. We also have programs like We Cornell, a new accelerator for women entrepreneurs and engineers at Cornell. We now also, and that's just right in Ithaca, and then what I'm starting to see happening in the surrounding region and some of the programs we're tapping into include things like Launch New York and Nexus New York, as well as the Entrepreneurs Network, which is just launched by Jean Case and has a new women business accelerator program that is going and is active now. So it's mind-blowing to see. I actually had the experience recently of mentoring startups in New York City, and I actually felt sorry for them for the first time because they were not based in upstate New York. And I was sad that they couldn't take advantage of all the incredible resources we have here. And then to give a shout out to a couple companies that are companies to watch in the area. We have now multiple high growth startups right in downtown Ithaca. You can see the transformation. You walk down our commons and now, rather than seeing empty storefronts, you're seeing startup company after startup company in the buildings downtown. We have GiveGab that has raised over $16 million. They just had another big funding round recently. We have Ursa Space Systems, which is they collect data from radar satellites, and that company has raised over $13 million, much of it from outside investors, outside the region, from Silicon Valley and New York, like RRE Ventures. So that's just an incredible story. And they did something very smart, which was having a female co-founder on the founding team, Julie Baker, who's amazing. And she's helped them get to full gender parity on their staff too, which is rare for these high growth tech startups. So it's really exciting to see that kind of diversity in our region as well. And then one to watch would be a company like Complex, led by Haley Schofield, and that's a company that is in the Internet of Things and sensor data space for bees and beekeepers. And it's in the ag tech space, which I call out because that's just another exciting area in upstate New York right now. We now have multiple exciting programs coming down the pike for ag tech startups, including the Center for Regional Economic Advancement is partnering on a new center of excellence for ag tech, and there'll be multiple new funding opportunities and programs as a result of that in the region. So a lot of exciting growth, I would say, across multiple areas and some super exciting startups to keep an eye on.
Great. So, Richard, nothing's happening in Rochester.
Let me just tell you, Upstate Venture Connect, I've been involved with this for a bunch of years, and one of the great appeals, am I on? One of the great appeals is its statewide perspective. I'm a New York guy. I moved from downstate New York, thankfully, to Rochester, in retrospect, one of the greatest communities. So my comments will be Rochester focused, but I do have some perspective and believe that all of us in New York have a birthright. And unfortunately, I was a history major. When you look back and reflect on New York and what we've done, we've gone through a transition period. Thank you. We've gone through a transition period. I grew up in New York City and saw what it was like in the 60s and 70s. Let me just say it wasn't pretty. Now it looks like Disney World. And I believe our upstate region is approaching that tipping point and recovering. All great cities go through these cycles. And I see it right there in Rochester, the home of Western Union, Gannett, Xerox, and one of the greatest technology companies founded of all times, Kodak. You don't create brain power in 5 years. You don't create an RIT or U of R overnight. We have tremendous resources. In 2018, we live in a knowledge economy. And you have all this immense community and the cultural legacy that goes hand in hand with the technology, the culture that's required to build these great companies. And we see the validation externally. People from San Francisco, Boston, New York, we're showing up on their map because we can supply them with the talent and people who have an amazing work ethic. We have a great, livable, affordable community. And if I try to think of all the companies that emerged just in recent years, the list goes on. In fact, I'm associated with Upstate Venture Connect, and we're doing Deal of the Year. The quality of the deals, just within the past year, it's night and day. These changes don't occur glacially. They can occur quite rapidly, but it involves community, culture, and mindset. And when I think about the companies, one in Rochester that are getting a lot of visibility, there are far more, it's sort of a great multiple of that are actually making a difference, because the people are in their trenches working. They don't have the time to externalize. They're building their businesses, and I try to play that role. So I'll mention some of the companies. Obviously, Dado, which is technically based in Connecticut, but the lion's share of employees are located in Rochester. We have CloudCheckr, it's represented. We have Aerosafe. We have a lot of the people here. This is a company that is not known, but is growing exponentially, requires capital. Fortunately, some of the folks associated with it are here. And capital is what will fuel and accelerate the growth. Thank you, Upstate Venture Connect, for providing this platform. We have Jorsec, a software company that is emerging and has great young entrepreneurs. Now, almost everyone I meet who are associated with these companies have grown up, have a connection. Either they've grown up in this area or they've been educated at one of the wonderful institutes. The keynote speaker, in fact, attended Hamilton. We have Hamilton, Colgate, these small colleges in addition to Cornell and U of R, and right over there, Syracuse. So, and one of the real challenges we face right now, and particularly in our community, is a lack, we really fall short in terms of media. I think it's better in certain other markets. Thank you. I do read Business First, but we do need more. We don't need it to be burdened by print in traditional formats. RocGrowth is trying to fill that with content on our website. And I would say the economic development folks, we are burdened by New York State and some of the legacy issues. And we need to educate, and we need to inform that the business leaders are driving the economy. I am not going to my state assemblyman and asking him to drive my economy. So.
Right, thank you. Bob, what's happening in the capital region?
I'll speak for the capital region, but I think it correlates to everything across upstate New York. We're seeing a maturation of the ecosystem. We've gone away from just that love affair of idea and idea entrepreneurs, and we're really focused on making results and commercializing. I think that happens with marshaling resources, integrating resources, which obviously UVC does, and in the capital region, Innovate 518 does. We have a rich diversity of colleges and campuses to pull from, and I think our next level of development is to reach out to people that aren't touched by those campuses. The fringe entrepreneurs, the people that aren't part of these organizations. That should be our future think and our future effort. Marshaling resources for media and funding are the two keys I think that we're always looking for across all of our regions. Some of the companies that are kind of exemplifying what the capital region's doing, but also the integration that UVC provides. Right here, we have True Weather Solutions, which started at UAlbany as a startup New York company. It's in the micro-weather UAV space. They've just opened an office at Tech Garden right across the street, taking advantage of Genius New York. We have ag tech companies like Oryx that are using drone technologies to make farms more efficient. We have Lithos America, which is an offshoot of a European company, so we are attracting people from around the globe to Capital Region. And the beautiful thing about them, they're a 3D ceramic printer, but they are now creating a manufacturing plant in upstate New York in Rensselaer. And probably the last one, because it bridges academics and entrepreneurship, is Peak Neuro Group, which is a paramedical company that is involved in spinal and neurosurgery. It's electrical impulse following. It's a new, it's kind of a new adventure in the medical field, but they have no curriculum and no licensing, and they are trying to build the curriculum for a national license.
Great, excellent. Well, I feel like as a Central New Yorker, I need to say a little bit about the Syracuse ecosystem as well. And it's great to have so many people here today, because a lot of the companies that I'm talking about are literally within a 2-block walk of the area. And we already heard about TCG Player, and I can't wait for them to bring the dragon downtown. It's going to be awesome. You'll hear more from Chetty, and Kate also mentioned iCore Therapeutics, which I think is just a phenomenal entrepreneur and a phenomenal company in terms of their business model and how they raise funding and how they get companies to the next level and incubate just a whole host of life sciences companies built around being very efficient cost-wise and process-wise in searching for effective molecules and testing them. But right down the street from us are also Plaza & Mo's, Density, SpinCar, Sidearm Sports, Ephesus, and these are all kind of world-beating companies, from being the Uber or Lyft for snowplows to being, the platform for people to buy cars online, to, running 1,000 collegiate websites, athletics websites, and doing all the data and analysis and everything behind it, and running that content management system. These are just phenomenal companies, and they're all kind of really ushering in a new age. And one of the things that I'm seeing happen is that the reason they're all kind of coming together organically to be downtown within a block or two of each other is because downtown itself is transforming into a place where you can live now. It's no longer just a shopping district or an office district. It's more of a live on the second floor and up, and work on the next block, and then eat out at a new place every day. And that's incredibly attractive to a lot of the young talent that we have in the region. And so when you're close to talent, and when you have a quality of life that downtown like ours can offer, I think it's a huge benefit. So those are a lot of the companies.
Might I add, I'm very big on culture.
Mm-hmm.
Without the proper culture, we're not going to have this transformation. It's not going to continue. We have it.
Mm-hmm.
We have these great cities. I'm just admiring these gorgeous structures. In the 60s, we did some things to mess them up, but good developers can improve them, and good planning and zoning. And the transformation going on in the downtown in Rochester is part and parcel of this economic recovery we're experiencing. There's just within a mile and a half of the heart of downtown, these companies are located. Mm-hmm. And there are food trucks, there are fun things, pubs, there's craft brewing, there's, cool coffee shops. There's this, we in Rochester are the home of festivals. Mm-hmm. There's music events, a fringe festival, a jazz fest. This is all part and parcel. And I would suggest that might be a more helpful role for government to help with some of these festivals and, an entrepreneur, although the Jazz Fest is for-profit, driven by great entrepreneurs in Rochester. Mm-hmm. But, the excitement going on, I've been coming to Syracuse over the years, and it's just visible within the last 6 months to a year, the street traffic activity. So that must be recognized in terms of what we're here for, promoting entrepreneurship.
Yeah, but I want to make sure that everyone recognizes the amazing role that the Tech Garden team, most of whom are here today, particularly Rick and John and Caitlin and the rest of the crew that are managing the Genius New York competition, which is becoming not just a regional sort of attractor, but also a global attractor of talent and companies to the area. So, and then there are companies you are going to hear about in the future, like Chuck Storman is leading Acumen Detection. And that is going to be, back to the point about ag tech, I think there's amazing companies out there that are just in every community. So let's kind of switch things around and say, okay, this is all the stuff that's happening, right? The wheel is beginning to turn. What's kind of the one thing that you think is needed to keep the momentum going? I mean, why should I not say, okay, every place is doing great, so I'm sure we're doing great too, and when things start to fall off, we might be the first ones as opposed to the last ones. Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts in terms of, what can people in this room do to make sure that the momentum keeps going. Elisa, do you want to?
Absolutely, I'll kick it off. Yeah, I have a couple of sort of great action items for folks in the room. So if you are on the investing side, I would say this has never been a greater time to take out your checkbook. We'd love to bring more investors to the table. We need more growth capital for all these exciting companies, and I think everyone will benefit in the long run from supporting the ecosystem in that way. So if you want to talk to me afterwards about pipeline or deal flow, we've got so much exciting stuff happening. But also, if you are a startup who is now looking to raise funding, I have a really exciting opportunity to announce for you, and also an action item around that, which is a new funding opportunity for women-led innovation companies in the region. Many of you know Cheryl D'Onofrio and Jeff Adair from Monroe County. They have been long supporters of entrepreneurship in the region, and they have done that through Imagine Monroe and through the Entrepreneurs Network led by the amazing Jean Case. We are now partnered with Imagine Monroe and with 10 to launch a new Women Investor Accelerator and Pitch Competition that we're announcing now, that's happening in Rochester on December 4th. And there are exciting funding opportunities for startups who want to get engaged. So you can go to chloecapital.com/tour to apply for funding opportunities. But we would love to just see all of you come out and join us to continue to grow this community, grow this movement, and have so many more exciting high growth entrepreneurship stories to tell at next year's event, hopefully. So those are a few things I wanted to mention.
Who wants to go next?
I feel very strongly about the pay it forward culture. We have Mark Oney here from Employee Channel, RIT grad, grew up in Binghamton, bringing his company in the software development, top shelf venture backing to Rochester, and he can explain very articulately why the Valley works. Again, it's culture, it's pay it forward. Pay it back. It really is appalling to me when I hear some entrepreneur who's been successful after a liquidity event feeling pride around having created the jobs because he employed all these wonderful people from RIT. My next response is, did you write a big check to RIT? Are you becoming an angel investor? Are you doing a next startup? Are you mentoring? That is what's critical. That's what you see when you go to these companies that are now considered successful entrepreneurial ecosystems, such as Austin and Boulder and Portland. We in Rochester have all the ingredients to replicate their success. So it's paying it forward. We have a Clario, which is a nominee for Deal of the Year, started by the folks who had a tremendous success with iCardiac. And previously, one of the co-founders had a major success with virtual stoppings. So do it. I mean, this, for those of you, not everyone has the bandwidth, but just have the antennas out. So how you can help, give back to our wonderful community. Otherwise, it's just going to be nothing, bricks and mortar and nice trees and a lake or so.
I'll go next, Dan. Sure. If you're a resource or a mentor, push the entrepreneurs to sell something. Because until you sell something, you don't really have a business. Push them to find revenue. I think we can all do that better. The other thing is we can reach across the regions and pull each other together more and tell each other stories better. The more storytelling we do, the more attraction and attractive we will be, and that should lead to more investable dollars coming to our upstate economy.
Yeah, there's a lot of collective confidence surrounding startup companies in Buffalo right now, and really what the key is just simply adding value, which is adding individuals one by one who are willing to take part in the scene, given whatever their area of interest is. I would highly suggest anybody who's interested in checking out what's going on in Buffalo to visit the Thomas R. Beecher Innovation Center, and you can work in the dig space. It's sort of a co-working arrangement there. You can get involved in some of the popular sort of annual events, either Startup Weekend or which I know is held at other communities around upstate New York, and the Startup Grind lecture series. For investors, there are various groups that have sort of hung out a shingle and are looking for more partners who want to financially back startup companies. There's the Buffalo Angels group. There's also a couple others who are slipping my mind right now, but I can tell you afterward. And and there's a really robust and really welcoming group of just local guys who are into software and technology companies. You can attend any blockchain Buffalo meeting that you want, and those are known to have been the catalyst for other people to have started their own companies. So if you come to Buffalo, it's small enough so it's still a pretty welcoming scene, and anybody can get involved in these events. And
Great, excellent. So we're all here, we're all connecting. I just want to throw a shout out to our UNY 50 group of entrepreneurs, some of whom are on stage here today, but this is a group that is a perfect example of a group that has self-selected to say, yes, we've learned a lot of things as we built our business, but more importantly, we are committed to helping others who are going on that entrepreneurial journey help make sort of new mistakes, not the same mistakes. If there's a door we can open for them, if there's advice that we can give them, this is the kind of thing that I think we need, not just 50, but 500 of, and in every community, because all of us, regardless of where we are, have learned something, and there are people all around us who are making this journey for the first time. So wherever we can help them make that journey a little bit more visible and manageable, help them see around the corner, that would be an incredible opportunity. So I'm going to go a little off script and maybe take a question from the audience if anyone has one. Chuck. Anybody? Yes, Caitlin.
A lot of you mentioned kind of either the investor side or the entrepreneur side.
I'll repeat.
More on the supporting organization. What can, in addition to kind of reaching across regions, what other advice do you have for the supporting organizations to make sure that we're pushing the ball forward as well?
So the question is, as a entrepreneur supporting organization, as a venture development organization, you're normally looking at within a specific geography, what can you do to expand that reach, but also what in addition can you do to help entrepreneurs become more successful?
Yeah, I think playing that role of connector is so critical for those support organizations in the region. And I know that many of you, like the Tech Garden, already do a great job of that. But making sure we're connecting the startups not only to the resources in their own region, of which you heard from, there's many going on that we just talked about in this panel, but also connecting them all across the state to all these other resources. So making sure that all of our regions are collaborating more closely, and I think that's some of the great work that Upstate Venture Connect has really been doing, and trying to pull the region together so that we can together, even though we've got these smaller cities, we can act like a very, very powerful force in the entrepreneurship community together if we can all make sure to be sharing ideas, sharing resources, sharing talent. So I think that's a great role that connecting organizations can play.
And I think you need to help tell the story, because as entrepreneurs, our heads are down a lot. We're focused on our technology or trying to build something. We forget to look up. And I think that's a resource provider should add.
Great. Anything to add?
I just feel that there are two different, men are from Mars, women are from Venus frequently. And anyone who's in a different field, university people think differently than entrepreneurs, government people, politicians, nonprofit, and we all do those fairly well in this country, notwithstanding last week's events with politicians and government, but we do it well. And to the extent entrepreneurs think very differently, and to the extent people are clear and have direct contact and communication and understand what their incentive structures are, it will be better. So people in an agency, it's unsettling for entrepreneurs when a politician comes and says, this company at the ribbon cutting is going to create 50 jobs. Entrepreneurs, they want purchase orders. Hiring people is difficult. So, politicians are driven. So if we could actually work together more collaboratively, create fora to have that type of exchange and be open and understand what the mission is. So if people are in economic development and they're trying to reach out, understand an entrepreneur, grab lunch, listen to them, ask them what they need, do what we call in startup world, customer discovery.
Great. Well, with that, we're out of time. So thank you very much for sharing what's going on.
Two mics. We had 2 mics.